तो हेलो दोस्तों, स्वागत है आपका एक बार और H2 एड में। देखिए, ये एक नई सीरीज स्टार्ट करा है, ठीक है। इकोनॉमिक्स की सीरीज़ है, ठीक है। इकोनॉमिक्स करने के लिए क्या है, काफ़ी सारे तरीके हैं। देखिए, उसमें हम जो ये वाला तरीका स्टार्ट करा है, इसमें क्या होगा, जैसे नितिन सिंघानिया हम कर रहे थे लाइन बाय लाइन, और उसका लाइन बाय लाइन आपका डिस्कशन चल रहा था, ठीक है। इकोनॉमिक्स में क्या करेंगे, इकोनॉमिक्स साथ में स्टडी करेंगे। क्या होगा कि यहाँ मैं एक पीडीएफ बुक खोला हुआ हूँ, वहाँ आप अपनी बुक खोल लीजिए, ठीक है। ये 9th एडिशन है, ठीक है। कुछ चीज़ें ऐसी हो सकती हैं जो आपके बुक से वेरी कर जाए डिपेंडिंग ऑन एडिशन टू एडिशन। तो जो चीज़ इसमें अगर नहीं है आपके बुक में, तो आप वो ध्यान दे लीजिएगा। और जो चीज़ इसमें है और अगर जो किसी के बुक में नहीं होगा, किसी का 9th एडिशन से अगर जो कम होगा, तो वो यहाँ देख लेगा, ठीक है। और ऐसे करके जो है हम इकोनॉमिक्स स्टार्ट करते हैं। देखिए, इकोनॉमिक्स में लाइन बाय लाइन पढ़ूंगा, ठीक है। और आप भी अपने बुक में वैसे ही लाइन बाय लाइन देखेंगे, ठीक है। इससे क्या होगा, आप 2 बार रिवीजन होते जाएगा, ठीक है। कैसे कि जो भी चीज़ पढ़ी जाएगी, एक बार मैं पढ़ दूंगा, आप एक बार बुक में देख लेंगे तो 2 बार हो जाएगा। या फिर आप वीडियो खोल के बैठेंगे तो बेसिकली बुक ही चल रही है, तो बुक नहीं भी देखेंगे तो चलेगा। नेक्स्ट टाइम जब आप बुक देखेंगे तो आपको सब समझ में आएगा, ठीक है। देखिए, जो इम्पोर्टेंट डेफिनीशन होगी या फिर इम्पोर्टेंट लाइन होगी, उसका ही हिंदी डिस्कशन होगा, ठीक है। बाकी चीज़ें मैं इंग्लिश में बस थॉरो रीड करते हुए जाऊंगा, और वो चीज़ जो है आपको देखनी होगी, ठीक है। अभी स्टार्ट करते हैं इसको। देखिए, जल्दी जल्दी वीडियो को जो है 50 सब्सक्राइबर्स तक कर दीजिए। उससे क्या होगा, ये वाली चीज़ जो है अगर जो लाइव चलती तो ज़्यादा अच्छा रहता, जहाँ तक मुझको समझ में आ रहा है। लेकिन लाइव चलाने के लिए देखिए मिनिमम रिक्वायरमेंट जो है 50 सब्सक्राइबर्स का है, सिर्फ 50 सब्सक्राइबर्स का है। तो आप 50 सब्सक्राइबर्स जल्दी जल्दी कंप्लीट कर दीजिए, फिर हम इसको साथ में जो है लाइव करेंगे। चलिए अभी स्टार्ट करते हैं। देखिए, 9th एडिशन है, ठीक है। रमेश सिंह का है, इंडियन इकोनॉमी नाम है बुक का, ठीक है। और ये फर्स्ट चैप्टर कर रहा है, जिसमें इंट्रोडक्शन देखेंगे हम इकोनॉमिक्स का। तो देखिए अब क्या क्या है, सबसे पहला क्या टॉपिक है, तो इकोनॉमिक्स द डिसिप्लिन। इकोनॉमिक्स को एक डिसिप्लिन की तरह बता रहा है। चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं इसकी रीडिंग। The study of every discipline starts with the process of defining it. Economics is no exception to this, but the challenge of articulating an overarching definition of any discipline was never been an easy task, and at the end, one has to be satisfied with the partial definition. Different economists have seen the discipline with differing perspectives and have been coming up with differing definitions at times. A large number of such definitions became either narrow or incomprehensible, but it is necessary to have a working definition of the subject if one intends to study it. Before arriving at our own working definition of the subject, we may cite here two highly acclaimed and internationally established attempts in this direction. Economics is the study of how society use scarce resources to produce valuable commodities and distribute them among the different people. तो देखिए, दो जो सबसे वाइडली एक्सेप्टेड डेफिनेशन है उसमें से एक ये है जिसमें ये कहा जा रहा है कि इकोनॉमिक स्टडी है किस चीज़ की, तो सोसाइटी कैसे स्कार्स रिसोर्सेज का यूज़ करके वैल्यूएबल कमोडिटीज़ को जो है प्रोड्यूस करती है, जिससे कि डिफरेंट पीपल में उसको डिवाइड कर सके या डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर सके। As per the definition, there are two key ideas of the economics: that goods are scarce and that society must use its resource efficiently. Indeed, economics is an important subject because of the fact of scarcity and the need for the efficient use of resources. Over the last half a century, the study of economics has included such varied topics that the subject serves different purposes to different students of economics. Some study it to make money. Basically, most of its students in the developed world study economics to learn more, to earn more money. But the same is not correct for the case of developing world. The truth is that in the developing world, economics has only been read and taught, not applied. If developing world economics has only been read and sorry देखिए क्या कह रहा है, if we do a sweeping generalization, other study economics to know about poverty, unemployment, human development, shares, debentures, market norms, banking norms, prices and their movements, e-commerce, etc. Still, other might be studying the discipline to enhance their knowledge of economics. Second, economics studies how individual firms, government, and other organizations within our society make choices and how these choices determine a society's use of its resources. तो देखिए सेकंड डेफिनेशन में कह रहा है इकोनॉमी स्टडी है किस चीज़ का कि कैसे इंडिविजुअल फर्म्स, गवर्नमेंट्स और अदर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो है हमारी सोसाइटी के वो कैसे चॉइसेस बना रहे हैं और कैसे ये चॉइसेस जो हैं वो सोसाइटी के रिसोर्सेज के यूज़ को डिटरमाइन कर रही हैं। ठीक है, human life depend on the consumption of various materials which are made up of the resources available on the earth. As there is no limit to human wants, we need infinite resources to gratify our needs, but the resources are limited. Now it is up to the individual and humanity at large as to how they try to satisfy their competing needs to get fulfilled by the limited resources. It means we need to make some choices before we utilize the scarce resources by prioritizing some of our needs. In this process, some needs might never get fulfilled. At the same time, there might be some needs which may be fulfilled again and again with the available resources. Economics is the discipline which studies how individuals, society, and the other government make their prioritized choices in the process of using the scarce resources to gratify the various needs and wants of life. Making such choices is an art as well as science. As times change, the choice changes. As space changes, human needs change and so modify the choices. After studying and surveying the various choices made by humanity at large in different time and space, there evolved a discipline of economics. As economics is an exercise in the space-time continuum, it deals with the living human beings. It is a very dynamic subject and should only be read in the perspective to have a real feel. Working definition. It is essential to feel the subjects one intends to study. The fundamental way of doing this is starting with the definition of subject, but the definition at times or even most of time become very abstract, jargon laden and technical. Such definition might not give a proper feel understanding of the subject to a person who does not belong to economics. Most of the students of economics face difficulty in understanding the complete meaning of definition. That is why a very general and layman's definition is needed. Beings in their day-to-day lives are busy doing so many things. There are different activities we are involved in throughout our lives. These activities fall under the different categories. Economics study the economic activities of mankind. Similarly, political, social, administrative activities of the mankind are studied under political science, sociology, public administration, respectively. That is why these disciplines are broadly categorized as humanities, as all of them study human activities. There are many more specialized human activities which are studied under many more disciplines, which activities of the mankind economic activities. The activities which involve profit, loss, livelihood, occupation, wage, employment, etc. are the economic activities. ठीक है, ये वाली जो लाइन है ये आप ध्यान रखिएगा. द एक्टिविटीज विच इन्वॉल्व प्रॉफिट, लॉस, लाइवलीहुड, ऑक्यूपेशन, वेज, एम्प्लॉयमेंट etc. are economic activities. Economics study all these activities. Today economics has many branches and studies highly diverse subject matters right at the global, macro and micro levels. Why do some people go for fuel efficient car while other go for fuel guzzling sport cars? Why the poor are poor? Is capitalism doomed to intensify economic inequality? Will the process of globalization be able to bridge the poor rich divide and have a universal homogenization impact on the world? Such varied and many more questions fall under the domain of economics. These days, we also can see information technology giving a typical new dimension to economics. econo- e- economics and the economy. The relation between economics and economies, simply saying, is that of the theory and practice. While the former is a discipline study economic behavior of human beings, the latter is a still frame picture of it. Economics will come out with the theories of market, market employment, etc., and an economy is the real picture of the thing which emerges after the application of those theories. Economy is the economy is the economics at play in certain regions. This region is best defined today as a country, a nation, the Indian economy, the Russian economy, the French economy, etc. Economy as such means nothing. It gets meaning once it preceded by the name of a country, a region, a bloc, etc. When we say developed economies, we mean economies of developed countries. Countries of the world might be facing some common economic challenges. At same time, they might be facing some highly specific challenges. Economists during the period of evolution of economics have suggested some fixed number of theories and method for solving those economic challenges. Now it depends on the choices of the country as to which set of the principle and theories they select to solve their economic challenges. Further, many countries selecting the same remedy and tool to fight the same problem might have similar or dissimilar result during given period. At the same time, two economies selecting different tools to solve the same economic problem might experience the same result or completely different result. Why this is so? Basically, economic theories are expectations of the human behavior about their economic activities. as human as human behavior depends greatly on many internal and external factors, the results are likely to have diversities. The level and quantity of natural resources, the quantity and quality of human resources, the socio-political milieu, the historical background, the psychic make of human resources, etc., are some of the factors which individually as well as collectively impact an economy while carrying out economic activities. These things make it highly difficult for economists to forecast the kind of impact a particular economic policy will have on a particular economic setting. Ultimately, implementation and delivery system also play a highly vital role in solving economic challenges in a country, which economists started studying after 1960s. Therefore, it is correct to say that economics has less diversity than economies. There will not be any exaggeration if we say that no two economies of the world are exactly the same, though we might classify them into broader categories like developed and developing, agrarian and industrial, etc. The diversity makes economics a highly interesting discipline. It is through these diverse facts of the economies that economists have been able to modify and remodify their ideas on the subject of economics. The evolutionary history of the economics is nothing but modification in the past theories on the basis of contemporary results and experiences of the economies. It will be correct to say that the economics has developed out of real life practices and especially from evolution of the practice into theory. As practices will be having newer dimensions, the theory of economics will also have newer and more imaginative dimension. The focus of economics, this is the real purpose of the studying economic. What is the real function of purpose of studying economics? What have economists ultimately been trying to articulate, and what has been the focus of economics and the economists since the birth of the discipline? Though economics today studies a wide range of issues and topic, if we take an overall picture, its essence has been very simple: the betterment of human life on earth. Improving living conditions of the humanity at large has been the real ultimate goal of the discipline. In this process, economists have been articulating a number of theories and propositions as to how an economy may maximize its economic potential and worth. The first and the most famous work in this direction was by the Scottish philosopher economist Adam Smith in Wealth of Nations 1776. One can trace the origin of classical school of economics to his work. Similarly, in the following years and centuries, many outstanding works were produced by many great economists who were trying to improvise better ways of the maximizing the fruits of economic activities. Economics and economists have common goal, that is searching for possible alternative for the betterment of human life. Challenges of the economies. The main challenge of any economy is to fulfill the needs of its population. Every population needs to be supplied with some goods and services for its survival and well-being. These goods might include basic needs such as food, shelter, garments, etc. While it might also consist of refrigerators, air conditioners, car, medicines, computers, etc. Similarly, the services people need many range from healthcare, drinking water supply, to education to advanced and highly sophisticated services like banking, insurance, airways, telephones, internets, etc. As an economy moves up the ladder of the development, the process of fulfilling the needs of the population becomes a never ending phenomenon. As an economy achieves success in supplying one set of the goods and services to its population, the population start demanding another set of goods and services which are of higher order, and thus goes on struggle for the economy, solving one challenge and focusing on another. The standard of living of one set of population varies from another depending upon the attempts and success of the concerned economies, as to which extent they have been able to fulfill their needs of their population. There are two aspects of challenges that economies face. First, the availability of goods and services required by the population, and second, the presence of supply network. Every economy has to at first guarantee the required level of goods and services out of its production process. For this, proper level of production capacity should be built, which requires a particular level of capital formation or investment, from where the investable funds will be managed is altogether a separate question. Whether the investment will come from government, the domestic private sector, or the foreigners. Once these details are cleared and selected as per the socio-economic condition of the economy, the proper distribution network for the goods and services produced is assured. Distribution network models. In the arena of distribution network, we have three historically existing models: state market and state market mixed. In the first type of the distribution system, the state, that is the government, takes the sole responsibility of supplying goods and services required by the population with no payment being done by the consumer. The former Soviet Union and Communist China being best example. In the second category comes the market mode of distribution, which functions on the basis of price mechanism. In this system, goods and services are made available in the market, and on the basis of their demand and supply, their prices are determined in the open market, and finally they get distributed to the population. This was the distribution system of the capitalist economies. The whole of Euro America. The third and the most prevalent mode of the distribution, the state market mixed, developed out of the experiences of the former two systems. This distribution system has certain goods and services which might be made available to the population freely or at the subsidized prices by the state, and some might be supplied by the market for which consumers need to pay. Almost all economies of the world today follow one or the other kind of distribution system. As the socio-economic composition of the population of an economy changes, the mixture of good and the services to be supplied by the state and market get redefined in the economies from time to time. देखिए, एक चीज़ ध्यान में रखनी है कि इंडिया जो है वो स्टेट मार्केट मिक्स इकॉनमी को फॉलो करता है। ठीक है, आइए देखते हैं क्या कह रहा है। ऑर्गेनाइजिंग एंड इकॉनमी, one issue which has affected the civilized history of mankind the most and has been a point of continuous contentious is how the production process in an economy should be organized. Should production should be the sole responsibility of state or government, or should it be left altogether to the private sector? Again, will it be better to carry a production with a joint effort, a mixture of state and private enterprises? Depending upon the dominant view of the time in the particular country, different forms of production patterns evolved and different economic systems finally came up, providing alternative ways of organizing an economy. The three model of economic system which evolved in the course of human history are basically different stages in the evolutionary process of experiment. To define a better way of organizing an economy, we must have a conscience to overview of this evolutionary process. First, capitalist economy. The capitalist form of the economy has its origin in the famous work of Adam Smith, Wealth of Nation, 1776. Adam Smith, 1723 to 1790, the Scottish philosopher, economist, professor at the University of Glasgow, whose writing formed the basis of classical economics, had stressed certain fine ideas which were to take fancy among some of the Western countries, and finally capitalism took birth. He raised his voice against the heavy handed government regulation of commerce and industry of the time, which did not allow the economy to tap its full economic worth and reach the level of well being, stressing division of labor and environment of laissez-faire, non-interference by the government. He proposed that the invisible hand of market forces, price mechanism, will bring a state of equilibrium in the economy and a general well-being of the countrymen. For such an economy to function for public well-being, he acknowledged the idea of competition in the market. Once the USA attained independence, the idea of Adam Smith was made part of its public policy. Just 1 year after the Wealth of Nation was published, from here the idea spread to another part of the Euro America. By 1800, the economic system called capitalism was established, which was later known by different name: private enterprise system, free enterprise system, or market economy. The decision of what to produce, how to produce, and at what prices to sell are taken by the market, by the private enterprises in this system, with the state having no economic role. State economy, rooted in the ideas of historical change proposed by the German philosopher Karl Marx, 1818 to 1883. More specifically, the kind of economic system first came up with the erstwhile USSR after the Bolshevik Revolution 1917 and got its idea shape in the People's Republic of China in 1949. This form of economic system also spread to another countries in the Eastern Europe. Here we see two versions of the state economy. In erstwhile USSR, known as socialist economy, and in pre 1985 China as the communist economy. While a socialist economy emphasized collective ownership of the means of production, property, and asset, it also ascribed a large role of the state in running the economy. While communist economy, on other hand, advocated state ownership of all properties, including labor, with absolute power to state in running the economy. Though for Marx, socialism was a transitional stage to communalism. It never did happen in reality. Basically, this form of economy came in reaction to the prevalent popular economic system of capitalism and proposed just the opposite. The decisions related to production, supply, and prices were all suggested to be taken solely by the state only. Such economies were also known as centralized economy, centrally planned economy, or non market economy. The socialist and communist economies used to criticize capitalist economics of being based on exploitation. In response, the capitalist economists called them the practitioners of state capitalism, where the state was the sole exploiter. The communist and anti communist propagandas resulted in the serious intellectual discussions almost up to the mid 1980s. Third, mixed economy. The belief in the self correcting quality of the market and the invisible hand of Adam Smith got a major setback in early 20th century during the Great Depression 1929. The impact of the depression spread from USA to other economies of the Western Europe, escalating large scale unemployment, downfall in the demand of economic activities, and lockouts in industrial enterprises. The prevailing Smithsonian micro ideas failed to check the crisis. A new approach was needed, which came in famous work, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, 1936, by the English economist at Cambridge University, John Maynard Keynes. In 1883 to 1946, Keynes questioned the very principle of the laissez-faire and nature of the individual hand. He even opined that the individual hand brings equilibrium to the economy, but by strangulating the poor. He suggested that the prices and wages are not flexible enough to provide employment to all. Its full potential. Ultimately, a fall in demand will be imminent, resulting in the recession, and if unchecked, in depression, which happened in 1929. Questioning the limitation of market mechanism, Keynes suggested strong government intervention in the economy to get the economy out of the depression. He suggested an increase in the government expenditure, discretionary fiscal policy, fiscal deficit, lower interest rate, cheap money supply, etc., to boost the demand of goods and services. As this was the reason behind the depression, the Keynesian policy were followed. The concerned economies were successfully pulled out of the Great Depression. While Keynes was inquiring into the causes and cures of the Great Depression, he questioned the capitalist economic system being practiced throughout Euro America. He suggested capitalist order to assimilate the goal of the socialist economy. Economic ideas of socialists, that is the ex-USSR. In the capitalist economies of the time, all basic goods and services were the part of market mechanism, that is being produced and supplied by the private sector. It meant that almost everything the people required was supplied by the private enterprises via the market, which was ultimately an undimensional movement of money and wealth from the mass of people to the few who controlled the production of supply chain, and the masses were going through the process of pauperization every day, thereby weakening their purchasing power. In the end, it affected overall demand and culminated in the Great Depression. As a follow up to the Keynesian advice, many trend setting economic policies were initiated throughout the capitalist economies. One very important initiative which came out was the government's active role in the government active role in the economy. The government of the time started producing and supplying some basic goods and services which are known as public goods. These goods basically intended to guarantee minimum level of nutrition to all, healthcare, sanitation, education, social security, etc. The expenditure on public goods were incurred on the public exchequer, even if it required deficit financing. Starting from 1930s up to 1950s, almost 50% of the GDP in the Euro America was spent by the government on public goods, which also became popular as social sector. The essential goods and services which were till date being purchased by the people as private goods were soon made available by the state free of cost, giving people more spare money to create demand for the goods and services which were the part of the market. The above instance has been cited here just to show the process as to how capitalism redefined itself by including some useful traits of non-market economy, that is state economy. The mixed economy arrived in this way, and the classical capitalist economy was challenged by it. On the margins of these development, it is interesting to note the development that occurred in the state economy of the time. It was Oscar Lange, 1904 to 65, a Polish philosopher who in 1950 suggested the same thing for the socialist economies as Keynes had suggested for capitalist economy. Lange praised the state economy for many of its good things, but also suggested inclusion of some of the good things of capitalist economy. He advised the state economies to adopt market socialism. The term was coined by him. This suggestion was outrightly rejected by the state economies as such compromises in the socialist economic order were blasphemous at that time. This was taken as suggestion toward the democracy from dictatorship. The Keynes had suggested that the capitalist economy should move few steps forward. Socialist economy. Lange was suggested just the same in the case of state economies. Democracies are flexible, thus they were able to go for an experiment which paid them in coming times. But as the socialist and communist political system had been stubborn by nature, they did not go for any experiment and thus started moving toward their economic decay. It was in communist China under the leadership of Mao Zedong from where the first opinion came against the total state economic control. The ultimate example of the state economy, that is China, started its preparation toward the limited market economy under the political design of dictatorship. In 1985, China announced its open door policy, the first experiment in the market socialism. Long, long had the last law. Other state economies though caught unprepared, followed the Chinese experiment toward the market socialism. However, the switch over to market socialism has not been smooth for most of the state economies. The efforts towards market socialism in the Soviet Union, fueled by fueled by lofty ideas of Glasnost, openness, and perestroika restructuring, resulted in very disintegration of the nation state. The experts considered it a political fallout of an economic mismanagement. The other state economies experienced major economic backdowns in their transition phases to market socialism. Basically, for a smooth transition to market socialism, some prerequisites were required to be put in the place aforehand. China was ahead doing this homework since Mao's time, especially since 1975 onwards, which emerged as a real winner. The ideal type of example of state economy getting smoothly metamorphosed into a giant market economy. These two events spanning many decades were nothing but timely and a rational selection of economic traits from each other's economic systems and experiences. The world by the late 1980s was having neither a pure example of capitalist economy nor a state economy. There were many states of the world that opted for a mixed economy in the post Second World War period after coming out of colonial rule, such as India, Malaysia, Indonesia, etc. To name a few, the leadership of these countries should be considered visionaries, which was to be proved by the mid 1990. Though at practice level, the world looked flat for the mixed economy model. A formal opinion on the goodness, immediacy, and ultimate viability of mixed economic system was yet to emerge. The first such authoritative opinion in this direction came from the World Bank, which accepted the goodness and the need of the state intervention in the economy. This was turning point in the world economic thinking as the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund IMF were adherent votaries of virtues of free market economy. The concluding consensus emerged with the publication of the World Development Report 1999 titled Entering the 21st Century in the WB said the governments play a vital role in development, but there is no simple set of rules that tells them what to do. The World Bank went on to suggest that every country should determine the areas and extent of market and the state intervention depending upon its own stage of economic development, socio-political and other historical factors. The last the last World Bank document had basically rejected the both historically existing economic orders, namely the free market economy and the state economy, which meant Adam Smith and Karl Marx were cancelled and rejected outrightly. That too on the basis of historical experiences of both the orders. That is, both the worlds. Rather, the document advocates for a mixture of both the economic orders, that is, the mixed economies. The long standing ideological dilemma as to whether the market economy or the state economy was a better or the best way of organizing the economy was solved for all times to come. The document pinpointed good things of both systems and concluded that they don't have the relationship of dichotomy but that of complementarity. The real issue is not whether to have market or the state, but having both of them together makes more sense. Market economy might suit one economy, while it might not suit another due to different socio-economic conditions of the economy in reference. Similarly, the state economy model might serve one economy but might not serve the other. The real answer seems going for neither the market nor the state, but a judicious mix of both, as the state market mix depend upon the socio-economic and political condition of an economy. There can never be a mechanical prototype of the mixed economy which could be applied upon every economy universally. Every economy needs to explore its own mixture of market and state. Again, the same state might need to redefine composition of the state market mix in the economic in the coming times according to its changed socio-eco political scenario. The process of economic reforms in India started in 1991. It was in fact the search of new state market mix. While India had been a mixed economy since independence, after independence, India opted for mixed economy when the state mix dilemma was at its peak globally. In the process of organizing the economy, some basic and important infrastructural economic responsibility were taken up by the state or governments, center and state both. The rest of the economic activities were left to private enterprises, that is market. The kind of the state market mix for India went was though to be fit for socio-economic and political conditions of the time. Once the country started the process of economic reforms in early 1990s, the prevailing state market mix was redefined and a new form of the mixed economy began to be practiced as the socio-economic condition had changed. The state market mix also changed. The redefined mixed economy for India had a declared favor for the market economy. Many economic roles which were under the complete government monopolies were now opened for participation by the private sectors. Examples are many: telecommunications, power, road, oil, and natural gas etc. At the same time, the responsibility which were till date being shouldered by the state alone and which could be taken up by the state only when given extra emphasis. This category comes the whole social sector: education, healthcare, drinking water, sanitation, nutrition, social security etc. The economic system of India was mixed economy in pre 1991 years as it is in the post 1919 years, but the composition of state market mix has gone for a change in future as the socio-economic and political factors will be changing. India will be redefining its mixed economy accordingly. The emergence and evolution of mixed economy was thus able to settle the long-standing debate as to what was the best way to organize an economy. Starting in 1776 with the Wealth of Nation of Adam Smith, it continued till we had the World Development Report of 1999 by World Bank. The dilemma continued for almost two and quarter centuries, 1776 to 2000. Today, once the World Trade Organization WTO has taken over the world economy, the brand of the mixed economy it advocates is more inclined towards the free market economy. However, it does not propagate to make the state an economic non-entity. That is, it leaves scope for greater state intervention in required area if needed. Role of the state in an economy. The dilemma of searching the ideal way of organizing an economy as it evolved was also going to solve another riddle. The riddle was the role of the state in an economy. If we look back into economic history of the world, we see three possible roles for the state or government in an economy. First, as a regulator of economic system, where the state takes important economic decisions, announces the required kind of economic policies, takes the sole responsibility to get them implemented, and controlling and punishing those who don't oblige to those economic decisions. Second, as a producer and or the supplier of the private goods and services, these include all those goods and services which constitute the part of market and which will be distributed among the needy according to the principle of market mechanism. Here the state earns profit as a private enterprise. Third, as a producer or and supplier of public good and social goods. These include goods and services which look essential from perspective of social justice and well-being for people: education, healthcare, sanitation, drinking water, nutrition, caring for differently abled and old, etc., comes under this category. These goods, which are generally distributed free of cost at times, might reach the beneficiaries at subsidized prices. The loss incurred by the state in this way is paid out of the public exchequer, which means that the whole economy pays for the cause of a few people. As different economies select different roles of the state according to their socio-political ideologies, the world has differing ways of organizing the economy and had resulted in establishment of different economic system in the past. On the issue of regulating economy, there has been no debate, as we see all economic system being regulated by the state only. But the selection of other two functions of the state in an economy made the real difference. The economy which selected both the roles, second and third, for the state under monopoly, we call them state economies. The category of economy had two variants. In the socialist economy, at least, the labor was not owned and exploited by the state, unlike the other, the communist economy, where the labor used to be under complete state control. The economies has almost no market. The economic system which left both the roles, second and third, as the role responsibility of the private sector, was called capitalist economy system. Here the state had almost no economic role but played a passive role as the regulator. Mixed economy had the least kept the economic role fixed for the state, that is third, of supplying the public good to the needy people. In some of the mixed economies, the state went on to take some of the roles of supplying the private goods, that is second, even by carrying a heavy burden on subsidies. The World Bank document, the World Development Report 1990, was a judgment on the possible and suitable role of the state in the economy, which suggested a timely suffering of the state's role in the economy as per the socio-economic and political needs of the economy. We may understand the moot question via Keynes, for whom the political problem of mankind is to combine three things: first, economic efficiency; second, social justice; and third, individual liberty. In the process of realizing above mentioned objective, an economy cannot go for either allowing only state rule in the economy or only the market rule in the economy. These challenges could only be faced properly once the state and the market both are given a balanced role in an economy. The balance to be defined by its present condition and the direction of the future goal of economy. Striking the right balance between the role of the state and the market in the economy came to be known as the process of economic reforms in the post WTO world. If we analyze the need of economy, we see some compulsory roles for the state in it. First, if the regulation and control of economy is left to private individual or groups, that is firms, they will be using the regulatory powers to maximize their profit and returns at the cost of others. That is why this role must rest with the state. It looks more logical in the democratic political setup, wherein the interest of the largest number is being represented in the regulatory provisions. Second, the responsibility of producing and distributing private goods to the people could be well handled by the private sector, as this is a profit fetching area. The state should not burden itself with this responsibility, as this could be well taken up by the private sector. But in the absence of the proper presence of private sector in an economy, many countries in the world gave the responsibility also to the state, India being one among them. But as the private sector became capable in some countries, the responsibility was given up by the state in favor of the private sector, and better development has been possible in those economies. In this sense, India delayed this process, while in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and South Korea allowed entry to the private sector much earlier. Third, the responsibility of producing and supplying the social or public goods to the needy cannot be left to the private sector, as this is a loss making exercise. It means the state will have to take some responsibility or may need to expand its roles in such areas, as we see in the post reform India. As the private sector become capable of playing proper role in the producing and supplying the private goods, state saves its important human and economic resources, which is transferred to take care of the production and distribution of public goods. Basically, the World Bank study, the East Asian Miracle 1993, recognizes above given shift of one kind of the mixed economy to another kind of mixed economy. In these cases, Malaysian, Thai, and South Korean economies taking place since mid 1960s, experts believe that this shift could not take place in time in India, and once it started, it was too late, and this choice was not voluntary but obligatory. The East Asian economies had gone for same kind of reform processes, but by their choice. Washington Consensus. The term Washington Consensus was coined by US economist John Williamson in 1989, under which he had suggested a set of policy reforms which most of the officials in the Washington, that is the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, thought would be a good for the crisis driven Latin America countries of the time. The policy reform included 10 propositions. First, fiscal discipline. Second, a redirection of the public expenditure priority toward the field of offering both high economic returns and the political and the potential to improve economic distribution, such as primary healthcare and primary education and infrastructure. Third, tax reform, no lower marginal rates and broaden the tax base. Fourth, interest rate liberalization. Fifth, a competitive exchange rate. Sixth, trade liberalization. Seventh, liberalization of FDI's inflow. Eighth, privatization. Ninth, deregulation in the sense of abolishing barriers to entry and exist. And 10th, secure property rights. However, in coming times, the term became synonymous to non-liberalism in Latin America, market fundamentalism, as the George Soros told in 1998, and even globalization across the world. It had often been used to describe an extreme and dogmatic commitment to the belief that market can handle everything, but the reality has been different. The set of policies was already being recommended by IMF, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank, WB, together with the US Treasury, especially during the period of 80s and early 90s. The prescription was originally intended to address the real problem occurring in the Latin America at the time, and the use later to handle a wide array of other situations had been criticized even by original proponents of policies. The name of the Washington Consensus has often been mentioned as being somewhat unfortunate, especially by its creator John Williamson, says that audiences the world over seem to believe that this signifies a set of neoliberal policies that have been imposed on the helpless countries by Washington based international financial institutions and have led them to crisis and misery. There are people who cannot utter the term without foaming at the mouth. He further adds that many people feel that it gives the impression that the points outlined represent a set of rules imposed on developing nation by United States. Instead, Williamson always felt that the prescription represented a consensus precisely because they were also universal. Many proponents of the plan do not feel that it represents the hard time neoliberal agenda that anti-free trade activities say it does. They instead present it as the relatively conservative assessment of what policies can help bring a country to economic stability, but the policy prescription led to the processes which are known as liberalization, privatization, globalization, thus cutting down the role of the state in the economy, more so in the nation which got developmental funding from World Bank or went to the IMF, International Monetary Funds, in times of balance of payment crisis, BOP crisis, as in the case of India, which commenced its reform process in 1991 under the conditions of the IMF. It was as if the Adam Smith's prescription of free market liberalism has taken its rebirth in neoliberalism. Many scholars believe today that the current financial crisis of US and the European nations are somehow born out of the ideas rooted in the consensus. In the aftermath of the Great Recession, after the US subprime crisis in the Western economies, it is believed that the dependence on the market to correct the growth and development may not sustain any longer, and the world might agree in favor of a development state, as in case of the East Asian nation which never went for the consensus for their robust growth. The Keynesian idea of interventionist state seems to ultimate alternative in the present times, as it's suggested by the US Nobel economist Paul Krugman and being followed by the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, the three arrows of Abenomics sector of an economy. Every economy tries to maximize the return of the economic activities in which it is involved. Whatever be the organizing principle of an economy, the economic policies are broadly classified into three broad categories, which are known as the three sectors of the economy. First, primary sector. This sector includes all those economic activities where there is the direct use of natural resources as agriculture, forestry, fishing, fuels, metals, minerals, etc. In some of the economies, mining activities are considered as the part of secondary sector. Though we see direct use of the natural resources here, broadly such economies term their agriculture sector as primary sector. This is the case in India. देखिए इसमें प्राइमरी सेक्टर की डेफिनेशन देख लीजिए. ये क्या कह रहा है, दिस सेक्टर इंक्लूड्स ऑल दोज इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज वेयर देयर इज अ डायरेक्ट यूज ऑफ नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज. तो ऐसी जो भी चीज़ें हैं जिसमें हम डायरेक्ट यूज़ करते हैं नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज का, वो प्राइमरी सेक्टर में आती है. जैसे कि एग्रीकल्चर है, फॉरेस्ट्री है, फिशिंग है, फ्यूल है, मेटल्स हैं, मिनरल्स हैं, ठीक है. लेकिन कुछ इकोनॉमीज ऐसी हैं जो माइनिंग को सेकेंडरी सेक्टर की तरह जो है कंसीडर करती हैं, जबकि माइनिंग में अगर आप देखें तो नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज का डायरेक्ट एक्सट्रैक्शन होता है, लेकिन उसके बाद भी जो है इसको सेकेंडरी सेक्टर में कंसीडर करती हैं. ये जो है ऐसा इंडिया में भी होता है. इंडिया में भी जो माइनिंग है वो सेकेंडरी सेक्टर के रूप में देखिए जानी जाती है. फिर देखते हैं सेकेंडरी सेक्टर क्या कह रहा है. This sector is rightly called manufacturing sector, which uses the produce of the primary sector as its raw material. Since manufacturing is done by the industries, this sector is also called the industrial sector. Example are production of bread, biscuit, cakes, automobile, textiles, etc. देखिए सेकेंडरी सेक्टर वो सेक्टर है जो प्राइमरी सेक्टर के जो नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज हैं उनको जो है रॉ मटेरियल के तरह यूज़ करके, ठीक है, या उसकी प्रोसेसिंग करके, ठीक है, एक नया गुड प्रोड्यूस करें. ठीक है। ऐसी जो चीज़ें हैं, ठीक है, उसको जो है सेकेंडरी सेक्टर में कंसिडर किया जाता है, या फिर आप कह लीजिए इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर में कंसिडर किया जाता है। एग्जाम्पल अगर जो आप देखें तो ब्रेड है, बिस्किट है, केक्स है, ऑटोमोबाइल्स है, टेक्सटाइल है। ठीक है, टर्शियरी सेक्टर देखते हैं, कह रहा है दिस सेक्टर इंक्लूड ऑल इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज where different services are produced such as education, banking, insurance, transportation, tourism, etc. This sector is also known as service sector. देखिए टर्सरी सेक्टर में जो है सर्विसेज को कंसिडर किया जाता है। ठीक है, जैसे कि आप देखिए एजुकेशन है, बैंकिंग है, इंश्योरेंस है, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन है, टूरिज्म है, ये सब है। देखिए इसमें जो है सिर्फ सर्विस को ही कंसिडर किया जाता है, इसलिए इसको सर्विसिंग टैक्स सेक्टर के नाम से भी जाना जाता है। Type of economies depending upon the share of the particular sector in the total production of an economy and the ratio of dependent population on them for their livelihood. Economies are categorized as agrarian economy. The economy is called agrarian if it shares the primary sector is 50% or more in the total output, the GDP of the economy. At the time of independence, India was such an economy, but now it shows a symptom of a service economy with the primary sector contribution falling to almost 18% of its total produce, while almost 49% of the population depends on the primary sector for their livelihood. Thus, in the monetary terms, India is no more agrarian economy. However, the dependency ratio makes it so. India being the first such example of the economy history of the world. देखिए एग्रेरियन इकॉनमी क्या है? ऐसी इकॉनमी जो जिसमें जो है एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर जो है, ठीक है, उसकी जीडीपी का 50% से एबव या 50% कंट्रीब्यूशन करे, तो ऐसी इकॉनमी को देखिए एग्रेरियन इकॉनमी कहते हैं। पोस्ट इंडिपेंडेंस के टाइम पे इंडिया भी एक एग्रेरियन इकॉनमी था। ठीक है, उस समय एग्रीकल्चर जो है 50% तक कंट्रीब्यूट करता था हमारे जीडीपी को। अभी देखिए सिर्फ 18% ही कंट्रीब्यूट करता है, जबकि अगर जो हम देखें तो 49% जो इनकम है इस देश के लोगों की, ठीक है, वो एग्रीकल्चर से ही आती है। उसके बाद भी देखिए जो है ये सर्विस सेक्टर इकॉनमी हो गया है। अब ज़्यादातर जो है जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है वो सर्विस सेक्टर का है। ठीक है, और देखिए इंडिया सिर्फ और सिर्फ इंडिया ही एक एग्रेरियन इकॉनमी का कभी भी एग्जाम्पल रहा है पूरे वर्ल्ड में, बाकी कोई इकॉनमी कभी इसका एग्जाम्पल नहीं रही है। इंडस्ट्रियल इकॉनमी, if the secondary sector contributes 50% or more to the total produce value of the economy, it is an industrial economy. Higher the contribution, higher is the level of industrialization. The western economy which went for early industrialization, earning faster income and developing early, are known as developed economies. Most of these economies have crossed this phase once the process of industrialization सैचुरेटेड। इंडस्ट्रियल इकॉनमी देखिए, इंडस्ट्रियल इकॉनमी वो है जिसमें सेकेंडरी सेक्टर जो है 50% से ऊपर के जो है जीडीपी में कंट्रीब्यूट करता है। ज़्यादातर जो डेवलप्ड इकॉनमीज हैं आज की, ठीक है, वो कभी ना कभी इस फेज से गुजरी हैं। ज़्यादातर वो इकॉनमीज हैं देखिए जो पहले ही जो है इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन की तरफ चली गई। ठीक है, तो वो सारी जो है कभी ना कभी इंडस्ट्रियल इकॉनमी का पार्ट रही हैं। थर्ड देखते हैं सर्विस इकॉनमी। द इकॉनमी वेयर 50% और मोर ऑफ द प्रोड्यूस वैल्यू कम्स फ्रॉम द टर्शरी सेक्टर इज नोन एज सर्विस इकॉनमी। फर्स्ट लॉट ऑफ सच economies in the world were early industrialized economies. The tertiary sector provides livelihood to the largest number of people in such economies. In the last decade, 2003 to 4 to 2012 to 13, growth has increasingly come from the service sector, in which the contribution to overall growth of the economy has been 65%, while that of the industrial and agriculture sectors have been 27% and 8% respectively. By the end of 19th century, it was a well-established fact that at least in the Western world, the industrial activities were a faster way to earn income in comparison to agrarian activities. The Second World War had established the fact for the whole world, and almost every country started their preparation for the process of industrialization. As country after country successfully industrialized, A pattern of population shift occurred from one to another sector of economy, which was known as stages of growth of an economy. With the intensification of industrialization, dependency on the primary sector for livelihood decreased, and dependency on the secondary sector increased consistently. Similarly, such economies saw a population shift from the secondary to tertiary sector, and these were known as the post-industrial societies or the service societies. Almost the whole Euro America falls under this category. These economies are having over 50% of their total produce value being contributed by the tertiary sector, and over half of the population depends on this sector for their livelihood. Many other countries which started the process of industrialization in the post-war period did so aberrations in the shift of the population, and the income of India being one among them. देखिए कह रहा है सर्विस इकोनॉमी वही है जो टर्शियरी सेक्टर जो है जब 50% कंट्रीब्यूट करने लगेगा कंट्री के जीडीपी में, तो उसको जो है सर्विस इकोनॉमी, ठीक है, कह देंगे। देखिए ये ज़्यादातर अगर जो एग्जांपल देखें तो जब इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन से पहले जो कंट्रीज पहले इंडस्ट्रियलाइज हो गई, वो जो पहले जो थी वो सर्विस सेक्टर में थी, फिर धीरे धीरे इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन की तरफ गई और ठीक है फिर इंडस्ट्रियल सेक्टर में पहुंच गई, क्योंकि ये तो बात एकदम पक्की है कि इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन से जो है ज़्यादा इनकम जनरेट की जा सकती है। ठीक है, जितने भी यूरो नेशंस हैं वो जो है एक इसका एग्जाम्पल हो सकते हैं। इंडिया भी देखिए इसी का एक एग्जाम्पल है। द आइडिया ऑफ नेशनल इनकम Income is probably the most frequently used term in the economy, is used by the expert and layman. Income level is the most commonly used tool to determine the well-being and happiness of the nation and their citizens. This remains true even today, even if we know that the income is not an exhaustive idea to know about the well-being of the society. There has been some reason for such perception about the concept of income. Basically, when the idea of human development came into being in early 1990s, the concept of human development index ultimately was heavily dependent on the level of income of an individual in the country. Education and life expectancy can only be enhanced once the required amount of expenditure on them could be mobilized. Thus, somehow income came to be established as the focal point of the development or human development. As income of a single person can be measured, it can be measured for a nation and the whole world. Although the method of calculating or accounting may be a little bit complex in later case, in due course, 4 ideas or ways to calculate the income of nation developed, which are subject matter of the national income accounting. These 4 ways to calculate are the concept of GDP, NDP, GNP and NNP. All are the forms of national income but are different from one another. They all present a different story about the income of nation in their own specific way. Here we will objectively discuss each one of them. देखिए क्या कह रहा है, आइडिया ऑफ नेशनल इनकम की बात कर रहा है। तो नेशनल इनकम देखिए क्या है, नेशनल इनकम जो है किसी भी पर्सन की या कंट्री की हो सकती है। ठीक है, देखिए अर्ली टाइम में क्या है, देखिए इनकम जो है बहुत ही ज़्यादा एक इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ मानी जाती है, मानी जाती थी किसी भी आदमी की, देखिए उसके हैप्पीनेस को डिटरमाइन करने के लिए, क्योंकि लोगों की सोच ऐसी थी कि आपके पास पैसा है, ठीक है, तो ही आप जो है हैप्पी हैं। तो जो है इनकम जो है वो फोकल पॉइंट था उस समय के। देखिए उस समय जब ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट इंडेक्स जब पब्लिश हुआ था तो उसका फोकल पॉइंट जो है कहीं ना कहीं जो है वो जो है इस पे डिपेंड था कि नेशनल आपकी जो इनकम है वो क्या है। ठीक है, उसके बाद देखिए 4 तरीके हैं, ठीक है, इसको बेसिकली कैलकुलेट करने के, जिसमें से जीडीपी है, एनडीपी है, जीएनपी है और एनएनपी है। जो लोग पहले पढ़ चुके हैं फुल फॉर्म तो जानते ही होंगे। ग्रॉस डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट, नेशनल डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट, जीएनपी बता दीजिए क्या है, और एनएनपी चलिए कमेंट करके बता दीजिए क्या है। ठीक है, आइए देखिए चारों में धीरे धीरे कर लेते हैं। पैसों से पहले जीडीपी है। जीडीपी, ग्रॉस डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट, is the value of all final goods and services produced within the boundary of the nation during 1 year period. For India, this calendar year is from 1st April to 31st March. देखिए ग्रॉस डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट वो सारी जो है फाइनल गुड्स और वो जो है गुड्स और सर्विसेज की फाइनल वैल्यू है जो एक जो है एक कंट्री के जो है बाउंड्री में प्रोड्यूस होंगी 1 साल के अंदर में। ठीक है, इंडिया जो है ये 1 साल का टाइम पीरियड 1 अप्रैल से लेके 31 मार्च तक कैलकुलेट करता है। देखिए डिफरेंट नेशन डिफरेंट जो है टाइम लेते हैं, ठीक है, लेकिन 1 साल का ही कैलकुलेट होता है बेसिकली। इट इज ऑल्सो कैलकुलेटेड बाई एडिंग नेशनल प्राइवेट कंजम्पशन, ग्रॉस इन्वेस्टमेंट, गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग एंड ट्रेड बैलेंस, export minus imports. The use of the export minus import factor removes expenditure on imports not produced in the nation and adds expenditure of the goods and services produced which are exported but not sold within the country. It will be better to understand the terms used in the concept gross, which means something in the economics and the commerce, a total, as total means in the mathematics. Domestic means all economic activities done within the boundary of the nation or country and by its own capital. Product is used to define goods and services together, and final means the stage of product after which there is no known chance of value addition in it. The different uses of concept of GDP are as given below. First, per annum percentage change in it is the growth rate of an economy. For example, if country has the GDP of rupees 107, which is the 7 rupees higher than the last year, it has the growth rate of 7%. When we use the term a growing economy, it means that the economy is adding up its income, that is in quantitative terms. Second, it is a quantitative concept and its volume size indicate the internal strength of the economy, but it does not say anything about qualitative aspects of the goods and services produced. Third, it is used by IMF or World Bank in the comparative analysis of its member nations. NDP, net domestic product, is the GDP calculated after adjusting the weight and value of the depreciation. This is basically net form of the GDP, that is the GDP minus the total value of wear and tear, depreciation that happened in the assets while the goods and services were being produced. Every asset except human being go for depreciation in the process of their use, which means they wear and tear. The government of the economy decide and announce the rate by which the asset depreciates, done in India by Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and the list is published, which is used by different section of the economy to determine real level of depreciation in the different assets. For example, a residential house in India has a rate of 1% per annum depreciation. An electric fence has 10% per annum etc, which is calculated in terms of assets price. This is one way how the depreciation is used in the economics. The other way is used in the external sector. While the domestic currency floats freely as against the foreign currencies, if the value of the domestic currency falls following market mechanism in the comparison to the foreign currency, it is a situation of depreciation in the domestic currency, calculated in the terms of loss in the value of the domestic currency. Thus, NDP is equals to GDP minus depreciation. This way, NDP of an economy has to be always lower than GDP for the same year. since there is no way to cut depreciation at zero, but mankind has achieved too much in this area through developments such as ball bearing, lubricants, etc., all innovated to minimize the level of depreciation. The different use of the concept of NDP are given below. A. For domestic use only. To understand the historical situation of the loss due to depreciation to the economy. Also used to understand and analyze the sectoral situation of depreciation in the industry and the trade in the comparative periods. B. To show the achievements of the economy in the area of research and development, which have tried cutting the level of depreciation in the historical time period. However, NDP is not used in comparative economics, that is to compare the economy of the world. Why this is so? This is due to different rates of depreciation which is set by different economies of the world. Rate of the depreciation may be based on logic, as it is in the case of houses in India. The cement, bricks, sands, and iron rods which are used to build houses in India can sustain it for upcoming 100 years. Thus, the rate of depreciation is fixed at 1% per annum, but it may not be based on the logic at all times. For example, up to February 2000, the rate of depreciation for heavy vehicles with 6 wheels and above, was 20%, while it was raised to 40% afterwards to boost the sales of heavy vehicles in the country. There was no logic in doubling the rate. Basically, depreciation and its rate are also used by the modern governments as a tool of economic policy making, which is the third way how depreciation is used in the economics. GNP, gross national product, is the GDP of the country added with its income from abroad. Hence, transboundary income activities of an economy is also taken into account. The items which are counted in the segment income from abroad are: first, private remittances, the net outcome of the money which inflows and outflows on account of the private transfer by the Indian national working outside of India to India, and the foreign national working in India to their home countries. On this front, India has always been a gainer till early 1990s from the Gulf regions, which fell down afterwards in the wake of heavy country bound movements of Indian working that due to the Gulf War, and afterward from the USA and other European nations. Today, India is the highest recipient of the private remittances in the world. As per the World Bank projected, $72 billion in 2015. In 2013, it was $70 billion, the year's highest. China falls second, $64 billion in 2015. Second, interest on external loans. The net outcome on the front of the interest payment, that is balance of inflow on the money lent out by the economy and outflow on the money borrowed by the economy of the external interest. In India's case, it has always been negative, as the economy has been a net borrower from the world's economy. Third, external grants. The net outcome of the external grants, that is balance of such grants which flows to and from India. Today, India offers more such grants than it receives. India receives grants or loan grants mix from new countries as well as UN bodies like the UNDP, and offers several developmental and humanitarian grants to the foreign nation. In the wake of globalization, grant outflows from India has increased as its economic diplomacy aims at playing bigger role at international level. Unfortunately, the balance of all three components of income from abroad segment may turn out to be positive or negative. In India's case, it has always been negative
due to heavy outflows on account of trade deficit and interest payment on the foreign loans. It means the income from abroad is subtracted from the GDP to calculate its GNP. The formula is GNP equals to GDP plus income from abroad, but it becomes GNP is equals to GDP plus minus the income from abroad, that is the GDP minus income from abroad. In case of India, it means India's GNP is always lower than its GDP. The different uses of concept of GNP are as given below. First, this is the national income according to which the IMF ranks the nation of the world in terms of volume at purchasing power parity PPP. For a detailed discussion on PPP, please chapter 24. India is ranked as the third largest economy in the world after China and the USA, while as per the nominal prevailing exchange rate of rupee, India is the seventh largest economy. देखिए ये चेंज हो गया है, तो अभी जो है फिफ्थ लार्जेस्ट इकॉनमी है हम. It is second, it is the more exhaustive concept of national income than the GDP, as it indicates toward the quantitative as well as qualitative aspect of the economy, that is internal as well as external strength of the economy. Third, it enables us to learn several facts about the production behavior and pattern of an economy, such as how much outside world is dependent on the product and how much it depends on the world for same, numerically shown by the exercise and net flow of its balance of trade. What is the standard of its human resource in international parlance, shown by the size and the net flow of its private remittances, what position it holds regarding the financial support from and to the world economy, shown by the net flow of the interest on the external lending or borrowings. NNP, net national product of an economy, is the GNP after deducting the loss due to depreciation. The formula to derive it may be written as NNP is equals to GNP minus depreciation, or NNP is equals to GDP plus income from abroad minus depreciation. The different uses of concept of NNP are as given below. First, this is the national income NI of economy. Though the GDP, NDP and GNP all are the national income, they are not written with the capital N and I. Second, there is the purest form of this is the purest form of the income of a nation. Third, when we divide NNP by the total population of the nation, we get per capita income, PCI of the nation, that is the income per head per year. A very basic point should be noted here, that this is the point where the rates of depreciation followed by the different nation make a difference. Higher the rate of depreciation, lower the PCI of the nation, whatever be the reason for it, logical or artificial, as in the case of depreciation being used as a tool of policy making. Though economies are free to fix any rate of depreciation for different assets, the rate fixed by them making difference when the NI of the nation are compared by the international financial institutions like IMF, WB, ADB, etc. The base year, together with the methodology for calculating national accounting, were revised by the Central Statistic Office CSOs in January 2015, which is given in the forthcoming page.
देखिए कई जगह वीडियो में सिन वैट और एस वर्ड देखने को मिल रहा था, इसलिए क्या किए देखिए 9th एडिशन से जो है 14th एडिशन पे शिफ्ट कर गए हैं. ठीक है, अब यहाँ से आपको 14th एडिशन देखने को मिलेगा. देखते हैं क्या कह रहा है. कॉस्ट एंड प्राइस ऑफ नेशनल इनकम देखते हैं. कह रहा है वाइल कैलकुलेटिंग नेशनल इनकम द इशू रिलेटेड टू द कॉस्ट एंड प्राइस ऑल्सो नीड टू बी डिसाइडेड. बेसिकली देयर आर टू सेट ऑफ कॉस्ट एंड प्राइसेस, एंड an economy needs to choose at which of the two cost or two prices it will calculate its national income. Let us understand its relevance. Cost income of economy, that is the value of its total produced goods and services, may be calculated at either factor cost or the market cost. What is difference between them? Basically, factor cost is the input cost the producer has to incur in the process of producing something, thus as cost of capital, that is interest on loans, raw materials, labor, rent and power. This is also termed as factory price or production cost or price. This is nothing but the price of which of the commodity from the producer side, while the market cost is derived after adding the indirect taxes to the factor cost of the product. It means the cost at which the goods reach the market, that is showrooms. India officially used to calculate its national income at factor cost, though the data at market costs were also released while were used for other purposes by governments, commerce and industry. Since January 2015, the CSO has switched over to calculating it at market price, that is market cost. The market price is calculated by adding the product taxes, generally taken as the indirect taxes of the center and the state, to the factor cost. This way, India switched to the popular international practice. Once the GST has been implemented, it became easier for India to calculate the national income at market price. Price income can be derived at two prices, constant and current. The difference in the constant and current price is only that of the impact of inflation. Inflation is considered standstill at the year of the past. This year of the past is also known as base year in the case of constant price, while in the current price, present day inflation is added. Current price is basically the maximum retail price MRP which we see printed on the goods sold in the market. Revised method. The Central Statistical Office CSO in January 2015 released the new and revised data of the national accounts in affecting two changes. First, the base year was revised from 2004-5 to 2011-12. This was carried out in the accordance with the recommendation of the National Statistical Commission NSC, which had advised to revise the base year of all economic indices every 5 years. This time the methodology of calculating the national account has also been revised in the line with the requirements of the system of national accounts SNA 2008 and internationally accepted in standard. The major changes incorporated in the revision are as given below. First, headline growth rate. It will now be measured by the GDP at constant market price, which will be henceforth be referred to as GDP, as is the practice internationally. Earlier, growth was measured in terms of growth rate in GDP at factor cost and at constant prices. Sector-wise estimates of the gross value added (GVA) will now be given at the basic prices instead of factor cost. The relationship between GVA and factor cost, GVA at basic price and GDP at market price is given below. GVA at basic price, CE plus OS or MI plus CFC plus production tax less production subsidies, where CE is compensation of employee, OS is operating surplus, MI is mixed income and CFC is consumption of fixed capital, that is depreciation. GVA at factor cost is equals to GVA at basic prices minus production tax plus production subsidies. GDP is equals to GVA at basic price plus product taxes minus product subsidies. Production taxes or product subsidies are paid or received with relation to the production and are independent of the volume of actual production. Some example of the production tax are land revenue, stamps and registration fees, and tax on profession. Some production subsidies are subsidies to railway, input subsidies to farmers, subsidies to village and small industries, and administrative subsidies to corporation or cooperatives.